Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to the Faithful Path, where every Saturday I break down the connection between our daily lives and the beautiful religion of Islam, how they both have an impact on each other, and discuss the issues we all have practicing our religion nowadays. So, without further ado, the podcast starts now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to the second interview of the Faithful Path. Today, I want to talk about time management. Sometimes we say we don't have time for ourselves, for school, for work, etc. We only focus on one thing in our lives, and that causes lack of time management. That's why today, our special guest is Khadr, aka Abu Jannah, and he will talk about how he manages his time and he organizes during his three busy lives. So let's give a warm welcome to Khadr, aka Abu Jannah. Assalamu alaikum. How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, jazakallah for having me, bro.
So to start it off, just give a quick introduction to the audience.
Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. My name is Khadr Abu Jannah. I'm a teacher by profession. I also work with the community. I teach on Friday nights at the masjid. I work at a Muslim school called JMC. I teach Islamic studies, Quran, and some other subjects as well. I'm involved with the student life there. I'm also studying. I'm taking evening classes with Qalam Institute, and I'm trying to also balance that out with having more of an impact in Montreal as much as possible.
That's good. Yeah. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about time management because I know you're a brother with three busy lives. You have a wife and kids. You work for the community. You work at GMC. So today the first question is, how do you manage to balance your three busy lives? And are there any specific strategies or routines you found helpful?
Yeah, Bismillah. So I think it's important that we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of everything, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the source of all barakah.
Of course.
And for anyone who's ever given some money fi sabilillah, you'll find that often when you give something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give you more.
Yeah.
And this is a very basic principle in our religion, that anything you give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He'll give you something better. So I think people don't understand how it's so important to give whatever you want an increase in, if you give it for Allah, right? And that's something I learned very well when I was studying, because I was studying whether the bachelor's or the master's, and prayer time comes in, and yes, you do have the entirety of that gap of time to do your salah in, like salat al-dhuhr, salat al-asr. You have like maybe 3-4 hours during which you could do it, but the masjid prays at a very fixed time, right? So I was at Concordia, and I remember being in the library building on McKay, and time for Dhuhr would come, and I know that Masjid Medina, just down the street, they pray at a certain time, and so I told myself, okay, well, I'm studying right now, all my books are open, my laptop is open, I can't leave my stuff here, right? It's not my office, so I gotta pack up, I gotta put everything in my bag, I gotta walk to Medina Center. It's gonna take like a couple of minutes, and then pray, and then come back. When I come back, it's busy time because it's exam season, right? So the library is packed. There's people waiting in a lineup to grab a computer. So I don't know if my spot's still going to be available. The time to go there, the time to eat, it's so much easier if I just tell someone, hey, yo, can you just check my stuff? And then I go to a corner, I do my dhuhr, and I come back.
Yeah.
But that's me being stingy with my time towards Allah. It's like I'm telling Allah, Ya Allah, yes, I know you're the source of goodness. I know you're the source of all the khair. But in my mind, I know that you want me to pray in the masjid with the jama'ah because it's less than, a couple feet away. But I, in my rationality, think that it's better for me to do something else. And you lose the barakah. And so I found that when I would actually pack up my stuff, take everything, go there, pray, and come back, it's almost like my studying sessions would go better. I would get better grades. And you just really see the barakah unfold in your life when you make those conscious sacrifices, knowing that, okay, mathematically speaking, I have less time to study, therefore I should do worse. But then the barakah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes in, and you end up doing better. Now, whether, someone who's a psychologist wants to look at that and be like, oh, well, it was good because you took a break from the studying, and so your mind is able to refresh, whatever baqwas answer they're going to give it. Oh, the walking actually stimulated the different muscles in your body to, create some better hormones for focus and whatever. Okay, cool, I believe it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So the question, how do you balance so many different things in your time? The answer is very simple. You give your time for Allah.
That's true.
Right? If you give time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He will give you more time, or He will give you barakah in your time. There's nothing you're going to give for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you're going to be punished for that. It doesn't make any sense. And so just to basically cut a long answer very short, the answer is, if you want to have an increase in anything, your time, your money, your efforts, your strength, your relationship, your focus, your mind, anything, you give some of it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you see the dividends are going to pay off. Yeah, you're going to see an improvement for sure.
But is there any aspect or like one life that you give more time to, like for example your wife and kids or your work at GMC?
So that's something beautiful as well about Islam. Just like for the question, it's a very good question. What's beautiful about Islam is that anything can be an act of worship. I mean, I don't want to say anything. I can't think of something that can't be an act of worship. I think anything that you do with the proper intention can become something that is rewarded. So even something like spending time with my wife and my daughter, it's a very conscious thing that I do, and I do it because I want the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the Prophet ﷺ said that the best of you are the best to their families, to their wives, and I'm the best of you to my wives. So this is a lesson we take. So for me, it's like I'm following the sunnah of the Prophet of Allah ﷺ by spending time with my wife, by spending time with my daughter. So even the time you spend with them, that to me adds barakah, right? If you focus on the community, adds barakah. Focus on your work, working with the Muslims, or even not, but just working in order to provide for your family, there's barakah there. So I think a switch in mindset, and you'll see, bro, like it's something I can't really explain. It's a little bit supernatural. But basically, if you do everything with the right intention, you'll feel you can fit so many more things in. And sometimes at the end of the day, I'll look at my day and be like, how did I have time to do all of this? And Allah facilitates. So if there's one place I focus more on, I couldn't tell you. I really try to give everything its due. Yeah, try to balance everything. And of course, the priority, and this is also in Islam, we understand that the priority is our family.
Yeah.
So, if my wife feels that I'm not spending any time with the family, I need to take that criticism very sincerely and understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made me a qawwam on my family, that I owe to them what I can give them. And then having those conversations as well with your family, where I know some of the young people watching this, maybe their parents tell them, oh, you spend too much time at the halaqah, you spend too much time at the masjid. I would say, and these brothers say, well, Khadr, should I stop coming to the halaqah? And the answer is, you should listen to your parents. You should make your parents be pleased with you. That's true. I think that if your parents start to see that your time at the halaqah or your time at the masjid is actually improving the kind of a son that you are, or the kind of a daughter that you are, then they're not going to have a problem with it. And I think the issue is when we start doing those things to the detriment of our family relationships, then our parents have an issue with it. Or when those things do not reflect positively in our lifestyle, so the guy stops studying. I've seen this a lot. Guys start coming to the halaqah and they fail their tests, and their parents are like, you used to be a good student, what's happening? I'm going to the halaqah. That's un-Islamic, right? Because now you're blaming Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your laziness or your lack of effort, and where you should be placing it. So in terms of a focus, I think family is always the number. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then family, and then you expand from there, right? And if everyone did that, the community would be better off.
That's true. MashaAllah.
Jazakallah for this.
So the second question is, with such a busy schedule, how do you make time for your personal life and self-care? And are there any activities or habits you prioritize to ensure you maintain a healthy work-life balance?
It's a very good question. It's a very good question. I think there's a difference between happiness and fulfillment. And I think fulfillment is more important than happiness.
For sure.
I think that, so I know that there's many studies that have been done on this with regards to motherhood. How they say that a mother will miss out on certain actions that provide her with happiness, but the actions which replace those give her much more fulfillment. And then the question is, what's more important? And generally people will choose fulfillment over happiness, because happiness is hedonism, right? It's just pleasing yourself.
Exactly.
So I must admit that there are many things that I like to do that I don't do because of a lack of time. But very rarely do I ever feel like it's always a very conscious choice, and I'm very happy with the choice that I make. And again, back to the concept of barakah, if I can give you a short example. There was one day that, so I have my watch here has like different rings, right? My move ring, my exercise ring, my stand ring. And it's very important for me to hit my 3 rings, right? It means that I'm still in shape. I'm still able to move, even though a lot of my work is done sitting down, as you can tell, right? Teaching, I try to stand up, try to move around, but it's super important for Muslims to be physically strong. Men and women, we need to be physically strong, right? So whatever that means that you can do in your own life, and I just don't have time to go to the gym anymore, unfortunately, as often as I would like. But I want to still hit my rings, so that doesn't really work together, right? But subhanAllah, I'll find that almost every single day I'm hitting my rings, even my 30-minute exercise ring, and I don't exercise. It's something I can't explain, right? So, and it's not because my watch is broken, because there are some days where I literally just sit all day and my exercise ring goes nowhere, right?
Exactly.
But whether it's walking through the school or just, sometimes walking to the masjid instead of taking the car, and then listening to a podcast or preparing a speech or practicing or whatever, there's all these little choices we can make, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you in a way that you're just like, subhanAllah, I'm hitting all the goals that I wanted to hit, and I'm still achieving all the things that make me feel fulfilled. So self-care, it's tough, bro, because for me, self-care is either, sitting with a mushaf or taking a nap or going to the gym. I like to, rest my body, rest my spirit, rest my mind. And for me, gym is actually a rest for the body. I enjoy it, bro. Tu défoules, puis ça express your energy, puis you think more clearly, and it's very important. But like a walk, a brisk walk will do that for you as well. C'est pas la même chose. From time to time, you want to go to the gym. But I will always prioritize the sense of fulfillment over the sense of happiness. And I think that's an important decision you need to make, especially if you want to feel like a productive individual. If you can fit in those things. And it's also important, bro, by the way, I'm just going to mention, sometimes I feel like we feel like we don't have time, but we do. And there's a lot of things that you can do in a more productive manner that allows you to fit more things into your day, right? So I'm a big fan of like listening to things while I'm driving, whether it's podcasts or adhkar or Quran, something beneficial, right? And you can get a lot done that way. I don't really have any games on my phone. Like I'm not the kind of person who's just gonna swipe, because that's just a waste of my time. I have one game on my phone, and it's like a Scrabble kind of word game that I do because I'm a geek and I like words, So, and I'll play it for a few minutes. But even that game, if I play for more than like 5 minutes in a day, I've even considered deleting the app because I'm like, bro, that was 5 minutes that I should not have spent just doing something useless, right? So just be conscious of how to use your time, and you really go to bed at night feeling like, alhamdulillah, I'm happier as a person. I think we need to start thinking like that.
For sure. And I say to myself, like, everyone has like 24 hours a day. Like it's how you manage your time and how like you organize it. Like you can't like no one has more hours in a day than like anyone else,
Absolutely. So if you feel like someone else can do more,
exactly.
What are they doing? Yeah, very important. Just like
nice. No problem. So question 3, last question, is how sorry, before the question, I know that you went to Kuwait before. Like, so like you were living here, you were working, and then you found a job in Kuwait, but then came back after how many years?
A year and a half.
A year and a half.
So we spent 3 months and in 1 year, and then came back, and then we spent about 10 months and came back. So really it's 13 months, but over a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is, how did this cultural change impact your work-life dynamics, and what considerations did you take into account when deciding to return to Canada?
That's a very good question. I think the reason we left is there's a lot of Muslims who think that I need to go back to an Islamic country and live an Islamic life, and only if there are masajid on every corner and there's no kuffar and there's no haram around me, that I can live a proper Muslim life. I think the reality is that anywhere you go in the world, you're going to find good and bad. And Brother Eduardo said a very beautiful quote that I tell myself all the time. The expression, the grass always seems greener on the other side, or the grass is always greener on the other side. His quote that I like a lot is, the grass is greener where you water it. So, if you look at someone else who has a nice patch of grass and you say, wow, I wish I could live there. Well, what are you doing to your patch of grass to make it?
Are you taking care of it?
Are you taking care of it? Or are you just saying, oh, it's ugly, let me leave? Right? Because if you have that attitude, then anywhere you go, you're going to be miserable.
That's true.
Whereas if you start taking initiative and say to yourself, I want to be happy here, let me make myself happy here. There are limits to that. I mean, the Prophet ﷺ eventually had to leave Mecca because it was just unbearable, and they had to go settle in Medina. But after what? After how long? And then once they were in Medina, was it just everything was perfect forever for the Sahaba and they never felt like they had to leave? No, you have issues sometimes that come up and you need to fix them. You need to handle your issues where they are. I think for people living in, by the way, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go live in a Muslim country. That's not my saying. That's all I'm saying. I think for some people it's good for them to go live in a Muslim country. I think there are people who need to go live in a Muslim country. And if you feel like that's something you need to do, then I encourage you to go and try it out before committing to it.
That's true.
Go live there for 4, 5, 6 months and then decide. Don't make a decision from here, because we had made the decision from here. We let go of all of our, anything we owned here, we had gotten rid of. We lost our residency, not our citizenship, because we're both born in Canada. We're both Canadian citizens. So you always keep your citizenship. But I gave up my residency. I gave up everything. I returned my car. It was on a finance. Alhamdulillah, 0%. No one starts, hating for the thing. So gave back the car to the dealership. Got rid of the apartment. Threw out my snow boots. I don't even know where my winter jacket is anymore. I had to get a new winter jacket when I came back. In our heads, it's like, khalas, we're gone. We're gone forever. We're back every summer to see family, and that's it. And the intention was better religion, better family, better community. And we got there and found that our religion took a hit. We were far from family, and there was no community. Yeah, you do have masajid everywhere, and it's not a flex to say that I was praying 5 prayers in the mosque every day. It's not a flex, because if you're living in Kuwait and you're not praying 5 times in a mosque in a day, there's a problem with you. There's literally a mosque between every 2 mosques. Bro, there's mosques everywhere. Like, you hear the adhan everywhere, wherever you are, whether you're in the mall itself has like 13 musallas. Like, not even just one musalla. Like, no matter where you are in the mosque,
like every level
has multiple musallas, right? So, like, let's just use Fairview, Point Claire, right? Because people might live in the West Island, just to give you a better idea. Like, you would have a musalla near, like, the Bay, and you would have a musalla near Winners, and you'd have a musalla near Pharmaprix, and you'd have a musalla near, like, whatever the other section is, right? Like the food court, you'd have a musalla, right? And then one on the top and one on the bottom. And for women and for men, musallas everywhere, in a mall, right? Let alone you leave the mall and then you have like 4 mosques around the mall, right? So there's no reason to miss your prayers. So yes, for sure, you have that sense of religiosity, but religion is not just about salah in the mosque. It's so much more than that. And we felt like we were far from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Spiritually, we felt disconnected. We also felt far from family. I have a daughter who was growing up without her grandparents. It was very tough on my parents, her grandparents, right? They wanted to see her. It was on FaceTime. C'est pas la même chose, like you do have a sense of connection, but it's not the same. So we felt, okay, religion is taking a hit, family is taking a hit, and there's no community work you could do, bro. Like, the community work there is very government run, with good reason. They don't want just anybody to just do any kind of work, and they don't know what it's about, right? Like, you can't just go to a mosque and start preaching Islam. They don't know who you are, what your qualifications are. It needs to be ministry approved, right? Which makes sense. I appreciate that, right? So it's reputable scholars who are giving the talks, which is nice. Charitable organizations. Not anybody can just collect charity. That's also government run, because they don't know where the money is going. They want to make sure it's going to a reputable cause. So as a Muslim country, they do put a certain control on how much Islamic activism you can have, which is good. But it's also, it also alienates a lot of people who want to do Islamic work, whatever that Islamic work is, and you just can't, right? So, like, of course, you can do Islamic work wherever you are, right? Like, you can always give charity to the taxi driver, who is working for sub-minimum wage, right? Because you want to help them out. That's an act of charity. You can bring someone to the masjid with you. It's an act of da'wah. You can talk to your colleagues about Islam. It's an act of da'wah. I'm not saying you can't do Islamic work, but in an organized way, the way it's done here, which is my passion and what I like to do, it didn't exist. And for my wife and me, that was an inconvenience, right? That was something that we felt took us further away from our attachment to the Islamic work we used to do. That's true. We went for Islam, family, and community. We didn't find Islam, family, and community, right? Like, so we felt like the 3 reasons we went for us, it didn't pan out. So for us, it just made more sense to come back. And we feel that since we've come back, because we saw that, like Eduardo said, the grass is greener where you water it, it just means that there's always going to be Muslims in Montreal. There's always going to be Muslims in Canada. And if you leave to protect you and your family, who are you harming? Who is staying behind? I don't know that it is realistic to tell every single Muslim person in North America to go back to a Muslim country. I don't think, Wallahu ta'ala alam, and Allah is the all-knowing, and this is just my opinion, which might be meaningless, but I think that there is benefit to Muslims being in non-Muslim lands, if only to give da'wah to non-Muslims and to be a force of change, of positive change in a corrupt land, because the entire earth belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so if you have parts of the earth with no Muslim influence, I don't know if that's a good thing. Now, the people who live here whether or not they are good influences on the people around them, they need da'wah themselves. And if you are living with them, then it's your responsibility to work in the da'wah, just like you're doing with this podcast, spreading the message of Islam. Any way we can, we try to benefit people. May Allah bless you and reward you for your efforts, and the viewers as well. And anybody who's doing any work for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if all the good Muslims, or the practicing quote unquote Muslims who take their deen seriously, dip, well, who's taking care of the ones who are here? What are you leaving them with? One, they're the ambassadors of Islam in the non-Muslim land, and they themselves need closeness to Allah. And then what? You're going to give them da'wah until they become religious enough that they can also move to a Muslim country? You're expunging all of the iman from a land which ultimately belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever titles they want to put on this land. I'm not promoting any kind of Islamic state or anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in its essence, the earth belongs to the Creator, and the morals that the Creator has blessed us with in the Quran and the Sunnah should exist on His earth, right? And as people who live in North America, it's our responsibility to try to live good moral lives and to show others the beauty in Islam. And if all the people who live and think like this think to themselves, I can't live here because it's too corrupt, I need to go back to a Muslim country, then I don't know if that's the right solution. I don't think it's realistic, and I think there's always going to be Muslims in non-Muslim lands who need the da'wah. So for us, it made sense to stay. Is it for everybody? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe to some people it's better for them to leave.
That's true.
But for us, in those three regards, it was better for us to come back. And I think that the work we do reflects that, because we think to ourselves, listen, if we're going to be here, you got to water it. If you're going to be here, you got to take care of it, right? So may Allah accept it from us, and may Allah put us all on a path towards da'wah, and I'll accept the fact that we are living in a non-Muslim land, which makes it difficult to practice our religion, and we're trying to do our best with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
You said once before that in Kuwait, you got like your dream job in a university, and like even your wife. And I want to say, like, beside like Islamic perspective, what made you come back to Canada if you had everything you wanted in Kuwait?
So in Kuwait, it's tax-free. You don't get taxed on your income. Zero tax. 0%, right? So if you get $4,000 a month, the $4,000 is yours.
Exactly.
Generally, companies will pay for your living expenses as well. So they pay for your rent. You generally will live in a company-owned building. So like the company that I work for, the school that I worked for, they didn't own the building. They were renting out the whole building, and the whole staff lives in the building. And in the morning, there's a bus that is sent from the school to pick all the staff up and bring them to the school and bring them back. So your transport to and from work is paid, your rent is paid, and you're getting a tax-free salary. Seems like it's the best thing ever, right? In addition to that, there's lots of opportunity because you are proper English-speaking Canadians who are also Muslim. Doors open up for you, right? Because people, and this is really funny, there's a lot of, I don't know how much I can talk about this, but there's a lot of stigma related to certain races. And I won't specify the race, but there are certain nationalities that don't have a very easy time living in certain places. And one brother who worked with me at the school, it's an American school. It's the American Creativity Academy. It's an American school. And this brother was working with me, and his background, like I'm Canadian, but my background is Lebanese Syrian. His background was of that nationality that is not very well seen in certain parts of the world. And he told me there's so many stories where he would show up to the airport and they would automatically treat him negatively until he spoke with a British accent, because he's British, he's from the UK. So he speaks with a British accent, and he said immediately they see the passport, the British passport, and they hear the accent, and it's like they're dealing with you as a totally different person.
Wow.
Yeah, subhanAllah. So he and myself and many others who have that reality where we speak properly English, we have a university degree from North America, from Europe, you're placed in high regard, especially because you're Muslim. So they also like that, right? Depending on the school, some schools will like the fact that you're Muslim. Some schools will not. Some schools will say, no, it's an American school, we want an American guy.
That's true.
Others will say, we're an American school, but we value Islam. And so if this guy can be Muslim and Canadian and degree from Canada so alhamdulillah, my wife and I checked all the boxes, right? We fit that criteria they're looking for. And if someone like yourself or someone watching this who is like a Canadian Muslim from a different background might also get that same benefit, right? So they really push you into these nice positions, which is, it's nice, right? Because you kind of have a step ahead, right? Because you on camera, as an American school, you present a guy like me who speaks English like an American, and the parents who live there who want to send their kids to an American school, like, oh, this guy is Arab like us, this guy's Muslim like us, and this guy speaks very well English, very, speaks English very well. And so I want my kid to speak English very well. Let me put him in this school. And so the school recognizes that reality, and they want to kind of promote you guys as like, oh, look, these are the Canadian Muslims we have in our school, or the American Muslims, or the European Muslims. So you have a lot of benefits, a lot of advantages. And unfortunately, what that meant for us was that leaving there, we gave up a lot of dunyawi opportunities. But ultimately, like I said, we are people who try to focus on a sense of fulfillment as opposed to happiness. And so when you make that change for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake and you come back here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has facilitated for us the means. And so I don't feel like I've given anything up. I believe that my rizq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately. And so if I give up an opportunity like that and I come here for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though the numbers mathematically doesn't make sense, I believe in the barakah and I believe in the reward of Allah. And I'm not stupid in thinking that I'm just going to come back and sit down, Allah's going to bless me. You got to work for it.
Exactly.
But Allah does reward those who do good, right? Allah rewards those who do good, and we shouldn't think negatively of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's treatment of people who sacrifice for His sake.
What about, like, what do you think about the people who say, like, sometimes we need to make sacrifices in order to get what we want? So, for example, if someone like finds a job in Kuwait, for example, like he has to sacrifice family, friends, and everything in order to get what he wants.
I would say that you have your priorities wrong. I would agree that you need to sacrifice for things that you want. But the things you want are wrong. Right? Like there's a hierarchy that has been taught to us by Islam as to how that hierarchy works. And that hierarchy is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, parents, family, and then the rest. And if the first two are not good, then forget the rest. Right?
That's true.
This is not from me. This is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so if someone says, I need to leave my family, or there are cases, I'm not saying it's for example, let's say I was given an opportunity where I have to leave my family for a month at a time, go do some work and come back contractually, whatever, back and forth. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I'm saying too, what we did was we left our parents for like 10 months at a time. Our parents are old. Like, wallahu alam, how long they're going to live for. Only Allah knows. So do I feel comfortable doing that to my parents? Like taking their grandchild away from them every day? They want to see her. Look, today when I'm back, I bring my daughter to my parents and she spends 2 days with them a week. And it's like, they cannot wait when I take her from them on Saturday to see her again on Thursday. It's like the thing they wait for, every single day. And that makes me very happy. And I believe there's reward in that if I do it for the right reasons. And I don't know if someone who disregards that in order to make some money. There's a hadith of Prophet where he says he had the shoulder of an animal, a lamb, I believe. I'm sorry. He had an entire animal. There was an entire animal that they had. And his wife Aisha gave some of the animal in charity. And he asks her, what's left? And she said, only the shoulder is left. Only the shoulder is left from the animal. The rest was given in charity. I don't want to mess up the Arabic. But basically said everything is only the shoulders left. Prophet corrected her and said, no, everything has remained except the shoulder. Because the shoulder, you're going to eat it. You're going to eat it and it's going to go, right? You're going to enjoy it for a few minutes and then khalas, it's over, bro. Like, a couple of hours is going to be out of your system. Never going to think about it again. But the rest of the sheep that they gave, or the rest of the animal that they gave, fi sabilillah, that it stays in their mizan until Yawm al-Qiyamah. That stays. That stays. Tomorrow, that's still there. The next day, it's still there. The next day, it's still there until the day of judgment. The shoulder is gone. So when people prioritize the things of this world they leave. They leave. The money, you're going to spend it. You're going to make, oh, what are you going to make? You're going to make $1 million, you're going to spend it. Khabib said beautifully, they offered him hundreds of millions to fight Conor again. A rematch against Conor. Hundreds of millions, bro. I think it was like 300 million. Whatever it was, with the contract and the deals and the sponsorships. And he's like, why do I want that kind of money? He said, can anybody eat more than one bread in a day? Can you eat more than one bread in a day? No. You're going to take a whole loaf of bread and you're going to eat a little bit. You're going to feel full. You're going to keep eating the whole day. That's one loaf. That's all you need. Like, what can you do with all this extra stuff that you're never going to really utilize? But family, the time you spend with them, the hasanat you get from spending with them, the reward, the feeling of closeness to your family that Allah has put in our fitrah that we seek out, that's forever, bro. Someone to prioritize the immediate, nice, fancy thing that he's going to throw out, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Someone might be working for their family. They say, I'm going to be work so that I can get a nice house for my family and get to
Yeah.
provide for them. And that's rewarded and that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But never, I think, we should prioritize the dunya over our family, and especially not over our deen. I think there's
For
a
sure.
hierarchy there that's the priorities are wrong.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Wallahu alam.
Jazakallah. Okay, so
Right.
before the 5 rapid fire,
Mm.
what's one advice would you give to me and the audience, and of course yourself, to have a better time management and to be more organized?
One advice
Mm-hmm.
is, I would say,
One.
understand that your time is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that shaitan wants you to waste your time.
Mm-hmm.
And try to be very critical about how shaitan tries to make you waste your time. And I said one thing in the halaqah just like 2 days ago. My mom one time, she told me that
You're lazy.
yeah, you're not tired, you're just lazy.
Yeah.
You're not tired, you're just lazy.
Yeah.
And that's something that stays in my head all the
Mm-hmm.
time. I tell myself, I'm tired, I don't want to do this. No, I'm not tired, I'm just lazy.
Mm-hmm.
This morning we were sitting in the room. I'm not bragging about this. This is something that I just think it's good
Yeah.
to advise people. Someone said, yo, who's gonna go get some water bottles from downstairs?
Mm-hmm.
The guys were thirsty. I saw him get out of the room, and in my head I was like, I don't feel like going. And then it was like, don't be lazy. And it kind of pushed me to be like, I'm gonna get the
Mm-hmm.
reward. So how about I used to race towards reward?
Mm-hmm.
And I went down and I got the water bottles. And the effort it took me to go and get the water bottles and come back,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that anymore. It's
Yeah.
not like my legs are tired
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
2 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about it. Had you not asked me the question, I wouldn't even have thought about it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the feeling, the reward of the relaxation that I would have had from
Mm-hmm.
not going,
Mm-hmm.
also, it's not like now I would have been like, yo, bro, those 30 seconds that I didn't go downstairs, I feel so replenished from taking that rest. Allahumma barik. No, that time is gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone. It's never going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I am happy that I used that to gain reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to benefit the brothers so that they could not be thirsty during the halaqah. And there's some benefit to what I did,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to being lazy and losing out on that. And
For sure.
shaitan will always try to convince you to be lazy.
For
Shaitan
sure.
will always try to convince you that you don't have time, or you don't have energy, or you're too tired, or you're too busy.
Mm-hmm.
He's always going to convince you of that. And the reality is that if you push yourself beyond that and you realize that laziness is such a dangerous slippery slope,
Mm-hmm.
that you force yourself to do the khair, you will find that you're never going to regret the good you did. You'll only regret the good you could have done.
That's true.
So never feel that there's something that you shouldn't be doing. If you can, always push yourself to do that. I know it's a vague kind of an advice, but I think it applies to so much that I hope people can still benefit from it.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, bro.
So, time for the 5 rapid question.
Yes.
The first question is, who is your favorite reciter of the Quran?
People will say this is a typical answer. I like Mishari Rashid a lot,
Mishari.
only because, not say he's the best necessarily, but he's the one I grew up listening to.
Mm-hmm.
So like my first surahs I ever memorized was from his voice, right?
That's
so it's kind of like a personal
Yeah.
connection I have. So
That's
Mishari
good.
Rashid.
Mishari Rashid. Okay. Second question, favorite name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and why?
I'm always very drawn to Al-Wahhab. Wahhab is a beautiful name.
Mm-hmm.
Wahhab comes from hiba, or I shouldn't say it comes from hiba. The word wahhab has a connection to the word hiba, and a hiba is a gift that you give someone that they didn't do anything to deserve.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you have let's say we have this podcast, and you give me a gift, and you say, thank you for having the podcast. I don't want a gift, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, for example, let's say you gave me like this water bottle, and you said, here's a water bottle, thank you for coming on the podcast. That's not a hiba. That's not it, because there's a reason you're giving that to me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm just walking in the street and you're like, bro, here's a water bottle. That's a hiba. It's a very cheap hiba.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not really doing much for me. But you're giving me something I didn't do anything to deserve. I didn't do any. There's no reason. You're just that generous.
Mm-hmm.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Wahhab. He's the one who gives us everything without us deserving it.
That's true.
You wake up in the morning, if someone, wa'a'udhu billah, he misses Salat al-Fajr, he still has food in his fridge. He still has his eyesight.
Mm-hmm.
He still has his life.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been struck with a thunderbolt.
Mm-hmm.
Allah hasn't taken away everything. If someone sins with their eyes, Allah doesn't necessarily take away their eyesight then and there. He might one day.
Mm-hmm.
You misuse the blessings, you might lose them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so generous that He continues to bless us with things that we don't even deserve. And I think that's a very beautiful name because it makes you always seek out the reward of Allah, and it makes you embarrassed to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because how can I disobey someone who has given me so many hibas throughout my entire life?
Jazakallah khair. Third question is, what was the last book that you read or currently reading?
I will say it was not the best book, so I would rather just talk about my favorite book.
Yeah.
And I would have to say it is the autobiography of Malcolm X. If you're talking about like a spiritually inspiring book, that book changed my life. Read it cover to cover. I encourage everybody to read that book. It shows how you can go from being someone. Malcolm X, rahimahullah, he started off his life when he was in prison. They used to call him Satan. They used to call him Satan.
Yeah.
They used to call him Shaitan.
His nickname? Or?
That was his nickname, yeah. Satan,
okay.
yeah, right? Because that's what kind of person he was. And he talks about it in his book. And then how he became someone who converted thousands to Islam in a time when no social media existed. He was a beacon of Islam in North America, and he was martyred for his beliefs. And I think just his life is such a beautiful life. It gives hope to anybody to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how you can degrade yourself and how Allah can honor you, subhanAllah. So that's a beautiful book spiritually. If you're looking into how to develop your more of a dunyawi sense, I recommend the Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits.
I believe it's James Clear.
Yeah.
If you're looking for relationship advice, I would say The 5 Love Languages by Gary, I want to say Paulman, something like that. Wait, 5 Love Languages is the only one. So Malcolm X autobiography, Atomic Habits, and 5 Love Languages. And then what's better than all of this is Quran.
Okay. Fourth question is, if I give you a time machine and you can only use it once, would you go to the past or to the future, and why?
Prophet Muhammad. So, can anyone ever give you a different answer?
I don't know, because some people want like to go to the future to see like what's ahead of them so they can plan for it. I don't know.
I would meet the Prophet Muhammad.
So that's like
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. Last question is, with your wife and kids right now, what's like the dream country to live in the future, if you could go like in the future?
Like I said, bro, grass is greener where you water it. But I think there are two or three places we would love to live in. The two obvious ones is Medina or Mecca.
Yeah.
I think Medina, personally, more there's that sense of love you have for that. That's the dua of the Prophet ﷺ. That's the manifestation of his dua for the land. It's just a beautiful place. You've been recently.
Yeah.
You know the kind of happiness you feel there. It's very surreal.
Serenity and
c'est fou. C'est vraiment beau, you know?
Yeah.
Like, to live there would be amazing. And then obviously Mecca, of course, so that you can, it's just so much easier for Umrah and Hajj and be close to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Kaaba. And then if you're talking about, like, let's say North America, it's like a two-part answer. I would say there's a lot of really great things happening in Texas. I think Texas is a great place to be. The Qalam classes that I'm taking at night happen in Texas. A lot of the good stuff, a lot of the imams and the shuyukh that we listen to reside in and around Texas. So there's a lot of khair happening there. The community is very strong there. Living in the States is difficult as a Canadian. It's very difficult to get a green card. And so realistically, they're just talking about the dream, right? Realistically, probably somewhere in Canada, maybe Mississauga or Toronto, a very strong Muslim community. And then ultimately, because my wife and I have talked a lot about this, Montreal. It's our home, bro. Tu vois, une chose que j'ai regretté quand j'étais au Koweït, c'est que mon français était inutile. Je dis pas que je parle bien français, mais je dis comme, il y a tellement de gens qui peuvent bénéficier par la dawa en français. Puis genre, on a un talent qui est le fait de parler une langue. Bro, une langue, ça te laisse toucher tellement plus de gens. Puis le fait que tu te mets dans une situation où est-ce que tu as une bénédiction d'Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala que tu ne peux même pas utiliser pour la da'wah, c'est comme déprimant, bro. So je pense que just living in Montreal and using that French, I think is a benefit, and I think there's more khair to be had, inshallah. Anywhere, bro, Ardullah, this is the land of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ardullahi wasi'ah, it's large. Anywhere you go, you asked me with my family. I would say if I did not have a family, and because with a family you need consistency, you need stability, right? Your daughter, I don't want to change her schools every year, like it's going to be tough for her. But if it was just up to me, I think like the dream would be. And if anybody is not married and is looking for like what they can do with their life, I don't know if you have a couple of years and just like unlimited money, but like the dream, ça serait to go from community to community and just spend 1 year in every community and just help them.
Nice.
That would be amazing, bro. Imagine tu vas Quebec City, start up halaqa, spend the whole year, boost it, done. Go to, I don't know, Ohio, boost,
World
done.
tour.
So I'm saying we just go and spend a year in different communities and just encourage people to come to the masajid, encourage people to go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the dream, bro. But realistically, with the family, it's just not realistic.
That's true.
Allah ta'ala.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, Khadr.
Jazakallah khair.
May Allah bless you, your family, your wife, and
same
kids.
to you, bro. Barakallah feek. And thank you for the podcast. Thank you for the meeting. Thank you for everybody for watching.
Thank you guys for watching.
You know, you're talking about time and using your time wisely. You know, people who are watching this clip could have been using this time to do anything else, play video games, waste their time on anything, watch a movie, watch a show, watch something. But alhamdulillah, I hope they got some benefit. And even if they didn't, because I don't know if my answers were good enough to give them that benefit, but at least the choice they made to listen to an Islamic content, I hope Allah rewards them for that. Jazakallah
khair. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to like, follow, and share. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وانتشت روحي وصار الدمع يجري